Let's just talk about one of the barriers of trade is a lack of digital infrastructure, and you've also spoken about what your company does in order to facilitate trade. Tell us about it.
So SNUCode builds addressing systems for the developing world, which allows everybody to have access to, public and, e-commerce services. So, for example, you can take our system, stand in front of your house and get, a 6-digit code, which is effectively acts as your postcode. Now, except it's way more accurate than what you have in the UK or the US. And so with that, you now have an address that you can use to call an ambulance, order food, order from Amazon or Jumia or any of the other local e-commerce services. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
So SNU also started with something called Code Red that's quite timely now that we are in a global pandemic that deals with making sure people have access to medical care. Tell me about that.
Okay, so SNUCode Red is the derivative of the original product, which is SNUCode, which again gives everybody in the developing world an address so that that can be used for delivery of emergency services and also for things like epidemiological studies, disease surveillance, and things like that. The great thing about it is that the whole system works without the internet. And so you have effectively an addressing system that exceeds what you have in the developed world, but has been designed to work with very little infrastructure. So, for example, it works totally without the internet. And that's basically it. We are currently working with 110 ambulance services across the continent in 23 countries. And that's where we are now.
All right, so when we speak about trade, often it's in very large-scale terms. We were throwing around trillions a little bit earlier on, and especially with the Africa Continental Free Trade area. Just break down for me how digital infrastructure and digital addressing will contribute towards economic growth or facilitating trade in a less higher level way.
Okay, in a few words, it's about expanding access, right? So today, if South Africa is like many other African countries, if you live in an affluent area, you have your street name, you have your house number, you have access to, all kinds of services, starting from the most important, which would be things like ambulance services, but down to the more prosaic, like, food delivery or, parcel deliveries and things like that. And so in that sense, by giving everybody an address, you're allowing everybody to participate. One of the good things is that, the President of the Republic of South Africa cannot have a more precise address than somebody who lives in the slums. And we are really proud of that. Mm-hmm. And so it's increasing access in that sense. The next way in which it increases access is that it means that anybody can now serve anybody, even within a country, right? So if I am the very best at making, a type of hat or, making certain kind of food, I do not now need to have, the capital required to be able to, set up, on a high street or anything. I can create jobs by allowing people to deliver my food or my clothes from wherever I make them to wherever else it needs to get to in South Africa and beyond. And having a unified addressing system across the entire continent allows that to happen easily.
How long do you think it will take for the African continent to be fully addressed, for everybody to have access, whether it's a formal address or whether it's about that code that you were speaking about earlier on?
Well, in a sense, it already is. So anybody can go onto the Google Play Store or onto the Apple App Store and download the app right now. It's called SNUCode, SNOOCODE. And you take it, you stand in front of your house, you push the generate code button, and then you have an address. And the powerful thing about it is you take somebody like my grandmother who refuses to use a smartphone. What did we do? We went to her house, generated a code, and wrote it on her fridge. Now, even without a smartphone, she can call, the ambulance service with a feature phone or call, for, food to be delivered to her house. And she just reads out the 6-digit alphanumeric code. And that's the powerful thing about it. So it's really about people one of the powerful things is that we are creating a situation where anybody who wants an address this very minute can get it. They can go online, download the app, and then generate their code and then have that from when they do need to use it. So yeah, every single country on the continent is already covered.
Talk to me about the challenges to trade. Earlier on, I was speaking about both the tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade on the continent, and you were suggesting that there are lots of problems on the continent that are sometimes self-created when it comes to trade.
Yes, in terms of the tariff barriers, everybody has spoken about, everybody knows, the consequences of, unnecessary or nuisance tariffs across the continent. But these tariffs also serve as the seed for corruption. And so when people have unnecessary tariffs or confusing tariffs, it creates room for, local, border officials to, create a lot of commotion and in a sense, frustrate people who are trying to trade. There are also issues around, the lack of connectivity between countries. African countries are not connected enough by rail or by air, and even, some might argue even by sea. And so these are things that are relatively easily solved. When it comes to things like electronic goods, and we must admit that these are significant. Thankfully, the spread of the internet across the continent is accelerating at a faster pace than almost anywhere else on the earth, and you can see what that has meant in terms of music and other digital services, and we should be looking to make sure that the physical products and services move in the same direction or at the same pace as digital services. And I think, if we're able to do that, we have a recipe for success.
Sesinam Dagadu, the CEO, thank you so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon, and our apologies about the sound a little bit earlier on. It's time for a short break. I'll have more business news for you when we come back.